Good evening. I want to call to order the Finance Committee meeting for April 22nd. And do I hear a motion?
What are we motioning to call to order? You want to do that first?
Yes.
Oh, you had me thrown off. I thought we were doing it last.
No, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm not.
Yep, get it.
Just, still excited about your birthday cake.
Well, they're individual cakes. You can take it home and tear into it.
Exactly. I'm not sharing. You got a small one. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for Lancaster City Council Finance Committee to convene into executive session to consider issues related to the employment and compensation of a public employee pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G1. The executive session should include the following individuals: Finance Committee members, Lancaster City Council members, Council President, Mayor McDaniel, Service Safety Director Woody, Auditor Nettles, Law Director Hall, and Treasurer Stoughton.
Second.
Thank you. We have a second. Roll call. Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
And I vote yes. We are now in executive session.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for Lancaster City Council Finance Committee to leave executive session and return to the regular meeting at this time.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
And myself, yes. We are now back into the regular meeting. Excuse me. Okay, the first item I have is temporary resolution 55-24, a resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the construction of the South Broad Street Improvement Project and to declare an emergency, coming from the Public Works Committee.
Kurt, would you come up? Kurt Shonk's going to explain this.
Good evening, I'm Kurt Schonk. We last fall applied for a grant with the Ohio Public Works Commission to repave and replace the curbs and do a little bit of sidewalk work on South Broad Street. This is from the railroad tracks to Hamburg Road. We unofficially but officially received that grant. We don't actually get it until July 1st. But I want to go out to bid now because normally you'll get better bids in May than you will in June and July. So we want to be ready and have a contract in hand when that agreement comes in on January 1st so that we can move forward and try to get that project completed before Thanksgiving or before October 31st, I think would be our completion date for that. So I think it's, and I'm kind of guessing my numbers, I think it's a $525,000 grant from the state. We'll have to come up with the rest of that out of our 3 mil levy money and also a little bit of our sidewalk money for the little bit of walk that we're doing. This is unrelated to the traffic signal at Reese and Broad that was taken out via an accident and hasn't been put back yet, but will be put back by our street department. Obviously, we'll be coordinating with the street department, but that is unrelated to our grant. So we are asking for permission to go out to bid for that project, and we're asking for 2 readings.
2 readings in your second?
Mr. Luchtenberg, please.
I'm sorry?
Mr. Luchtenberg.
Thank you.
Please.
Next item is temporary resolution 56-24, a resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and amend the certificate of appropriations with the county auditor and the 3 mil street levy improvement fund. Coming before finance. And we have Hence, are you going to comment on that? Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, and I'm sure Auditor Nettles might have some
Yes.
comments.
This is, we received the new amended Schedule A from the county auditor, which gave us the corrected amount that we'll be getting for the 3 mil street levy through real estate collections. So there was an increase in that. So this is just giving that information of the new revenue, anticipated revenue to receive this year to Tim. And Tim went through and is needing to appropriate some of those new revenues into a budget. So that's what this is for projects maybe this year.
Correct. Part of the new appropriation is going to actually help Kurt out with the South Broad Street match money from the 3 mil levy. Some of it's going to go back into some materials account so we can do a little bit more this year in-house that is outside of the 2024 SIP projects. That keeps us from doing any change orders to that current contract. And then we're putting a little bit of money that we pay the county to get our money, so they're going to charge us a little bit to get some of that new money out. So beefing up that account a little bit for that. And then to touch on what Kurt said about the signal at Broad and Reese, we are putting that signal back up. We are currently waiting on material to get here. So if anybody has any more questions about that, you can talk to me later, but we are in coordination with Kurt and the plans for down there, so we don't put something where he doesn't want it and all that good stuff, so.
Any other questions of Superintendent Dietz? And 3 readings?
3 readings.
Sufficient for you?
Yep.
Thank you very much for your time, and Auditor Nettles. So we will have 3 readings, and Larry Ailes, Mr. Ailes, will you second that? Sure. Thank you very much. That's it for resolutions. We have no ordinances to bring before the committee this evening, and we'll look for other discussion items section. Departmental updates. Do we have any? Chief?
Good evening. Every member of council should have received a letter of invitation for the May 8th ceremony for Light Ohio Blue. What this is a statewide celebration to commemorate fallen officers everywhere in the nation. And it's kind of on the beginning phases of Police Week, not quite Police Week, but it's right beforehand. The reason that we are taking a little bit more seriously this year is Lancaster has been chosen as the origination destination. Typically, that's a fairly large area that's chosen for that. But one of our fallen officers' wives, Connie Moyer, is actually the national president for COPS, which is a survivor benefit group, and that's a pretty big deal. So she was able to finagle that procession to start here in Lancaster. I'll spare you all the details because it's in the letter, but what I wanted to do is just personally invite any members of council that could possibly make it. Sheriff Alex Leap, myself, I believe the mayor will be speaking at this at the Tree Church at 721 North Memorial Drive. And there's really no way for me to articulate how big of a deal this is, but it's a huge deal in our community, and it'd be great if everyone could be there. If not, I totally understand everybody has real lives going on. As an alternative to that, May 3rd, we are doing our local memorial ceremony. For us specifically at the Lancaster Police Department, that would be to commemorate our 3 fallen officers that we've had. And that is a very special event. If you've not been to that police memorial in downtown Lancaster, it's a pretty moving ceremony. It's quick. It doesn't take much time out of your day. And I'll push more information about that ceremony out as it gets a little bit closer, but would love to have you there to see and witness that and just help us commemorate those officers. So that's really all I have. The May 8th one is the big deal just because it's a statewide recognition, but May 3rd would be tremendous too if you could do that as an alternative. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
Any other departmental updates? Please.
If I may, I have just 2 quick updates. One, I would like to officially welcome our new city planner, Chaslyn Carter. If Chaslyn wants to stand up and wave to everyone. Today was Chaslyn's very first day as our city planner, so I'm hoping that you will all welcome her, and I'm sure she's going to be getting in contact with a lot of you as she gets integrated into her new position. So congratulations, Chaslyn, and welcome. And then I also wanted to let you know, we've been kind of working on the city branding. I think that many of you know that we had a new city logo that was created probably back in 2015, and it's kind of morphed over the last few years in colors and placement. So we're trying to kind of get back to the original logo. Martin Barker's the one who originally created the logo for us, so he has actually printed some stickers and little pins for us. So I brought one of those for each council member tonight, so I'll hand that to you during our break. Thank you.
Thank you. And you're not asking Chaslyn to give a speech and?
I mean, if you would like to request that
No.
as finance chair,
don't
I
think she
fully
wants to come
support
up.
that.
Thank you very much. Any other departmental updates? Okay, we'll move on to tonight's meeting prep.
Thank you, Councilmember Wolfinger. Tonight, we have 3 special presentations, the first of which will be the Hunters Run Conservancy District presentation. We have Lindy Jackson here for that. We have the Fairfield County Health Department presentation, and going to talk to us about the role they play here at the city. And we have Joe Ebel here for that. And our In Focus presentation is the city fire department, and the chief was here, and I think he's still here, so right there he is. So he's here for that. So we have three special presentations, and I would just say that we'll get through all of those and get on to our regular agenda.
Thank you, President Porter. Any questions? Any other items to come before Finance Committee this evening? I hear none.
I'm so sorry. I would like to, if we could at this time discuss a piece that's up for, let's see, it's up for second reading, but there are three readings. If we could discuss it. It's 5424, because we will be bringing forward the 5 for transit. And this one is the 5424 that states about how we will be paying for this. Giving, money to the county, and it's up for second reading tonight of 3 readings. And could we have that discussion, please, to either suspend it tonight and pass with other pieces, or let it have 3 readings?
I'm open for discussion. However, Mr. President, is that something that would come in a main meeting to talk about?
We could discuss it here, it doesn't matter.
That's fine.
Yep.
Okay.
So it was brought up to me to suspend tonight, but then I'm not sure if that's the appropriate. Can you give us some guidance, please?
Yeah, so it's my understanding that President Porter asked you to suspend and pass this piece of legislation because the county would like to see it passed at the same time as the others. Unfortunately, I thought I still had additional time to work on the MOU. I had promised you all at the last council meeting that I would have a version of that ready for you to see before we put that forth to the county for their review. And I was out at a labor law and arbitration conference myself this last week, so I just did not have time to get that together. And also, I thought that it was going to be 3 readings because nobody mentioned
Right.
that it should be 2 readings to me. So I apologize, I don't have that prepared for you this evening. I can have it by the next meeting, but, that's within your purview as the chair of the committee woman, or as the chair of the committee, as the chairwoman. You have the ability to make that decision. You just have to have a second, obviously,
Well,
somebody who's willing to do
If
that.
we could have this discussion, even with our committee, I thought it was going to go 3 readings also because you had information to get us. So does anybody have any thoughts on this?
Do we have anything, Mayor? Did you want to offer anything?
Well, the way I understood the resolution, it was authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into a MOU with, and that you were giving the authority, you're granting the authority for the Safety Director to negotiate the terms of that MOU. I think the Law Director's point is she wanted you to be able to see those terms before you voted on it. So that's the 2 differences of opinion. One is authorizing the SSD to enter into, obviously with the Law Director's assistance. And the other would be that if it's your pleasure to wait for the MOU to review it, to pass it on 3rd reading, I guess that's your pleasure. The purpose of the request tonight was simply to have all the pieces of transit together and not have one lingering out there waiting for passage. It's not a significant issue, but it was thought that it would be more streamlined, just do it all at once.
Councilmember Schoonover.
Well, is there some kind of timeline, or did I get it? It's cleaner that they're all together, but we should have had them brought to us all together if they wanted to keep them all together. But at the same time, if there's deadlines that we're working with, that makes sense to me.
The deadline
Otherwise-
is July 1st.
Yeah.
We have to transfer it by July 1st. But the reason that they didn't come all together to you at the same time.
I understand why they did it,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
again, why does it matter that one's after the rest of them unless there's a deadline that we're working with? Which the deadline has no bearing on whether it's 2 readings or 3, right?
No,
So,
because it's July 1st, and this
Yeah.
would be done by May 6th.
okay.
Yes, Councilmember Luchtenberg.
Could we just review it in executive session at our next meeting?
No.
No, it's a,
Review the terms?
Yeah, it's a
rather
public
than-
record.
Okay.
So no, you're not allowed to take that into executive session. I apologize.
Okay.
Councilmember Ehlers.
Just personally, I would like to see the wording of it before I would vote for suspension, personally.
so I guess we'll wait 3 readings then. Okay.
I'll just weigh in that my understanding was what the mayor's understanding was, that we as council have given the service safety director on numerous occasions the authority to move forward to negotiate MOUs, including, I think, the one related to the bridge at the park that we're putting in, all of these before, that we've never seen the actual terms of that contract before we go ahead and we do that. So that's what my understanding of that piece of legislation was, and it would make sense to have everything move together, but.
Law Director, I believe we need 2/3 votes, which would be 7 in this case, to suspend. Is that correct? Being new on council, I want to make sure that the rules are followed.
I'm gonna have to do the math real quick, honestly.
I've got it right here.
666, yeah.
It'd be 7.
Yep.
As a suggestion, you may make a motion, if that's your desire. If it passes, then it's suspended. If you don't have the
Yeah,
7
we can-
votes, so that way
we can-
everybody gets to participate in the
We
decision-making
can write
process.
to the regular meeting, and then I'll put it out there to suspend, and if not, we'll just vote on next meeting. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anything else to come before council? Or finance committee, I'm sorry. A lot to come before council. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Ailes
Second.
and Mr. Schoonover. Roll call, Mr. Ailes,
Yes.
Mr. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover,
Yes.
and I vote yes also. We are now adjourned, and it is 6:35.
Council's regular session will begin at 6:40.
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our 2 locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
Hi, this is Anna Tobin from Meals on Wheels, Fairfield County. At Meals on Wheels, we provide in-home services to reduce hunger while empowering caregivers in their role of caring for a friend or family member. This April, we are once again honored to be chosen by the Buckeye Automotive Family's Buckeye Cares program. Buckeye Cares will make a generous donation with every car they sell. From all of us at Meals on Wheels, we say thank you, Buckeye family, for all of your support.
serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and lastly, the wisdom to know the difference. Lancaster City Council meeting is now in session. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're gonna give it a moment. One of our council members had to step out for a second, so we won't call roll until he comes back in. But when he does come back in, you can all wish him happy birthday, because today is actually his birthday. So
We can sing.
yes, if somebody wants to lead us.
No.
All right. Auditor Nettles has volunteered.
Pass it around, Sean.
He's got a cake under the desk.
I have plates and napkins and stuff in the car. Let me just go get them.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Bob. Happy birthday to you. Yes, yes, and many more. Happy birthday. We had to fill our time. Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Ehlers. Here. Mr. Ailes. Here. Mr. Bizjack.
Here.
Mrs. Hoop. Here. Mr. Luchtenberg.
Here.
Mr. Nyheiser.
Here.
Mr. Schoonover.
Here.
Ms. Teener.
Here.
Mr. Wing.
Here.
Mr. Wolfinger.
Here. Let the record reflect all 10 members of Lancaster City Council are present. Reading and disposing of the journal.
Regular meeting minutes dated April 8th, 2024.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the journal.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the journal. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Reports of city officials.
Email dated April 8th, 2024 regarding the zoning code submitted by Mrs. Hoop. Series of emails regarding certification of annexation submitted by Office Manager Liz Martins. Email dated April 9th, 2024 regarding Finance Committee meeting minutes submitted by Mr. Wolfinger. Series of emails dated April 12th, 2024 regarding the Public Works agenda submitted by Ms. Teener and LDOT Superintendent Tim Dietz. Email dated April 15th, 2024 regarding the start of the 2023 state audit of the City of Lancaster submitted by City Auditor Nettles. Series of emails dated April 17th, 2024 regarding special presentation for the Hunters Run Conservancy District submitted by President Porter. Series of emails dated April 19th, 2024 regarding the schedule and start of the 2024 Street Improvement Program Milling and Paving and Resident Awareness submitted by Mayor McDaniel and Ms. Teener. Email dated April 22nd, 2024 regarding Finance Committee meeting agenda submitted by Mr. Wolfinger.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the reports of city officials.
Second.
A motion and a second to receive and file the reports of city officials. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Communications.
Series of emails dated April 9th, 2024 regarding temporary ordinance 11-24 submitted by Attorney Brian Everett. Construction notice dated April 11th, 2024 regarding the Sifford-Rubel 2 138 kV transmission tie lines project submitted by Michelle Richardson, AEP Ohio Project Outreach Specialist. Email dated April 19th, 2024 regarding special presentation materials for the Health Department special presentation before council submitted by Fairfield County Health Commissioner Joe Eppel.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the communications.
Second.
A motion and a second to receive and file the communications. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We'll move on to special presentation and awards, and we're going to start the evening off with Lindy Jackson presenting us information about the Hunters Run Conservancy District and the recent process they went through. So, welcome.
Thank you, Council President. Council, it's been a long time since I've been up here. It was about 5 years ago, I think, maybe not quite 5 yet, but at that time I was begging for money. And now we've got the process to get the money, but we're not done yet. We finally got the reappraisal completed according to the Ohio Revised Code. And since we got a good county representation, thanks to the county commissioners, we were able to get this reassessment started, reappraisal started, because we were able to get ARP funding to do that. So we would not be ready to do it yet. Working on $195,000 a year, it's kind of hard to accumulate $250,000 that you just don't need for that. So we're to the point where last Wednesday we filed with the court on the 17th, and on the 19th the notice was published in the paper. It was on page A2, the bottom left corner. It was more than just a little fine print legal notice. Exceptions can be submitted on or before May 20th. So if anybody has a concern or wants to be heard in court, then hearings will be scheduled between May 29th and June 7th. So that's where we're at in the process. Today, I had about 58 phone calls, most of them around the indirect benefit, because people that live on hills, and I think we've probably got a few in here, don't understand why they have been asked to participate in this process. And it's $41 assessment, and the indirect benefits are hard to explain, but you have the overall good of the community. If you live overlooking a flooded area every 2 years, or you had a bridge that was washed out, and anyone that looks at the 1948 flood event on the website can see that the ridge out at Hunter Park on 22 washed out. And you don't just wash a bridge out one day and replace it the next. So there's been several bridges that got washed out in the 1948 flood, and it was years before some of them got replaced. So there is an impact there, it's real, but people don't really understand it. And they all look at these dams and think, well, if the dam broke, it's not going to affect me. But what you don't realize is when you have that big rain event, and you get that 100-year flood, or that 1% chance of having a flood in a year, or the 0.2% chance on the 500-year. People don't like to hear the 500-year because they think it's not going to happen for 500 years. It's real, and nobody has seen it. And the dams have been quietly working out there since the 60s, since 1961 was when the last one was finished. And that's the hard sell now. And we've struggled with, do we try to educate everybody before we do the process, or do the process and educate them during the process? And I think I'm getting more attention doing it this way. But it's not, it's not been fun so far, and this is just the first day. And the other complicated thing about this is you hire an economist and you hire an engineering firm to do the hydrologic studies and determine what the impact would be if the dams didn't exist. And then the economist, he uses a program that's set up by the Department of Agriculture, and does an assessment of the economic benefit, and that's somewhat subjective, but we came up with the benefit. It's about a $1.6 million annual benefit having the dams in place, and we're asking for about $700,000. So we're not asking for anywhere near what the full benefit is. And of that money, we're looking at about $250,000 a year for maintenance, operations, equipment, that sort of thing. Right now, we can only mow the dams once a year. They need to be mowed 4 times a year. We need to get rid of some of the small dams, turn those back into farm ponds, or completely eliminate them. And then we need to start accumulating reserves for matching funds for NRCS when they're ready to do the modifications to the dams. And all the big dams, with the exception of 8, there's number 8. There's 9 dams. One of them's not a full-fledged flood control dam, but the other 8, one of them has been rehabbed, and that was back in early 2000s. The rehab would consist of widening the emergency spillway, strengthening it, depends on where it's at. Number 9, our largest one, some of the emergency spillway was built on fill. So the concern is if it ever activated and water came around, it could start rolling around and actually undermining the dam. So that's one of our major concerns. That was originally assessed back in 2010, and because there was no money, nothing was done. So that's been 14 years. So that's kind of where we're at.
Might I interject or ask a question?
Yeah.
So it's my understanding you've gone through the process and evaluated all of your dams and your flood control methods here, and you've made a determination through a study that you need to have an assessment on certain properties that are within those areas and ones that are benefiting indirectly from the
Right.
from the flood control.
Right.
And is it true that those letters went out to everybody today?
No, they received them today.
Okay,
They went out on Friday.
Okay.
And then they went out on Thursday.
And then do you know what the average cost of what that assessment might be for a typical property owner?
The indirects are all the same. It's $41 a year. So it'd be
Okay.
$20.50 a half. And there was 13,119 letters mailed, not including the city and the county. And everybody's paying the 40, it's proposed everyone will pay the 41. And then in the inundation zone, it's based on the value of the house. So we used the old evaluations or appraisals from, 3 years ago? Because that's when we started this process. That's the data we had. So we don't consider the land, just the value of the home, because that's what you're protecting if it's being flooded. And those can range, from, if it's a $85,000 house, it's $150 a year probably. Take it from there. So if it's, unfortunately, most of the homes that are in the inundation zone are in, some of the lower income areas. And so there's an impact there to those folks. Some of them they're all over the place right now. Some of them were $50. There's people paying $150 right now. So the average, if you take out the 50 high and the 50 low, the average is about $178.
Okay. And then your board is all volunteers, right?
Well, kind of.
Okay.
We get paid $40 for a meeting every month.
Okay.
And over the course of the last year, after 5 years of this, I was to the point that there is the ability to get paid. The judge has to approve the payment. So I am getting paid on an hourly basis when I work, and I usually work about 40 hours a month. This month's going to be a lot different than that, but because I'm actually the operations manager too. I manage, the contracts and manage the part-time employee we have and the contractors when they're out there. So it's been an interesting experience. It's actually been kind of enjoyable. I've stopped short of saying, really.
Well, thank you for the work that you're doing and bringing this information to us. Do any of the other council members have any questions for Mr. Jackson?
When is it you meet?
Pardon?
When you have your meetings and that? When do you?
Third Thursday at 5:30 at the EMA office out on Baldwin. Check out the website. There's all kinds of information out there. A bunch. I've been responsible for that too. So if there's anything wrong there, blame me for that. So.
Does anybody else have any questions? Seeing none.
All right.
Thank you for coming and presenting the information.
Thank you.
Move on now to the Fairfield County Health Department.
Hello, my name is Joe Ebel. I'm the Fairfield County Health Commissioner. If you have it, that's fine. I was pleased to have the mayor and service safety director out to our office a couple weeks ago to take a tour and talk about all of our programs and services. And really wanted to have an opportunity to come in and just talk to the full council. Historically, I like to come at least once a year to council meetings and just give an update. I've been here for 3 years now, so I'm a little behind. But if you think back 3 years, we were doing mass vaccination clinics at the mall at that time. So we were a little busy, and now things are getting back to normal. So hopefully I can get back on the schedule to come out and talk about what it is we're doing and what's going on and how we can serve you better. The health department, in case you don't know, is located out on Sheridan Drive, 1550 Sheridan Drive, the Colonnade building. And they've been out there for 11 years or so. Before that, they were up across from OU or across from the high school in that big brick building, which was nice looking from the outside, let's say. So we've got about 38 employees that work at the health department, and we've got an office that we use up in Pickerington or in Violet Township that we're up there. Our WIC program serves the entire county. About a third of our clients are in that northwest corner, and the rest come to the Newark location. We've been expanding over the past few years. The county commissioners provide that space to us, and we've been able to grow some staff and grow into some additional space. I mentioned WIC. We have about 1,500 participants that are active in that program, and that's been going up for the last year. The state expectation for us, a full caseload, is less than 1,300, so we're running over expectations. This last year, our well and sewage permits were down. They had jumped up quite a bit. You can see in the graph there, a lot of new home starts later in the pandemic. And I think with interest rates being higher, there's a lot of kind of suppressed projects that'll probably pick up as soon as rates drop down a little bit. This year, we held a scrap tire collection event in Amanda at the high school. Last year, the year before, we did one up at the career or at the Workforce Development Center on Coon Path. And so we've been doing those in the spring to kind of coordinate with the one that's done in the city in the fall. This year, we've reorganized a little bit. Our focus has really been on developing our health promotion and kind of disease prevention activities. And we combine that with our emergency preparedness and planning staff to create a new division there and focus on that. Right now, we have 4 people working in health education. We have a full-time epidemiologist for disease control and investigations. And none of those positions were here when I started. So we're pleased to be working on developing that. We're also trying to get out more. We have staff at all kinds of public events. So if if the city's having an event and we're not already on the agenda to have a table set up or something, we're certainly willing to get out there. In the last 6 months, I've attended pretty much every township and village, and now the city, just trying to get out and meet people and develop those relationships that are so important to get things done. Funding is a big issue. We have a contract with the city, so they provide. Right now, last year was $360,000. This year, I think it's $372,000. Next year, it's going up 2.5%. So the previous year it was 3%. So we're trying to, even though inflation's quite a bit higher and things than that, we're trying to just keep down and only pass on as much costs as are necessary to maintain. But one of the things we really focused on is grant funding and diversifying our funds. So about 40% of our funding for the department comes from grants. Then our fees are, for restaurants and swimming pools and campgrounds and sewage and water and all those things make up about 30%. And then we have our nursing fees, our birth and death certificates, and then the townships and villages contribute about 14%, the city 9%, and the state the whole 2%. So Ohio's, I think we don't see it because we're just in Ohio, but when you compare to other states, the state does a miserable job of funding public health across the state. So almost all those grants that we get are federal grant dollars. They're not really coming out of the state budget typically. Some of the grants, WIC, I'd mentioned, is one of our largest. COVID-19 money we've had for the past few years. That one obviously at some point is going to stop. Water Pollution Control Loan Fund, which in our case is used to replace failed sewage systems for income qualified families. Also can pay to connect somebody onto sewer if they have a failed sewage system. And that's a loan that they don't have to repay, so it's really a grant program. Emergency preparedness is just what it says. Our workforce development is staff training, adding some staff that we couldn't afford otherwise. Tobacco prevention, I was here last year talking about the flavored vaping and all of those things. The cribs for kids, that's where we provide pack and plays is what I call them, for families that don't have a safe sleep environment for their infant. If they don't have somewhere where it can be alone on its back and in a crib, we can help out with that, try to prevent unsafe sleep deaths. We have vaccination, healthy eating, active living, and our Medical Reserve Corps are just some of the grants. And for 24, we've already secured new funds. This COVID Bridge grant is, the free vaccines are gone, but for uninsured adults, we're able to use that to vaccinate them. So we've been going out to some of the shelters and the free lunches and places and trying to get uninsured adults vaccinated. Our Healthy Aging Grant is another one that was through the county that allows us to help people that are 60 and over who have failing sewage systems and don't have the funds to repair or replace them. So that was new this year. Safe Communities is our traffic safety program. Our older adults fall prevention is a new one. This year we're working with Violet Township. So their community paramedic goes out and they have somebody who's known to have fall issues. We can provide them the grab bars and other things they need to go in and try to put those into homes to avoid falls in the future. So that's a new pilot, and hopefully we'll expand that. Overdose prevention, we're working now regionally, as well as our local program, the Project Dawn, where we provide naloxone. We're launching a newborn home visiting program to get a nurse out to visit families that have a newborn, make sure the child's doing fine, make sure mom's doing fine, connect them to resources and make referrals. And then a couple other smaller grants that we're working on. One thing we've been excited about, it's moving pretty quickly, is a community garden. And that's going to be at the Lancaster Fairground, or campground, Lancaster Campground, that's out on West Fair. So they've donated space, and we're going to have that where people can rent a area for their own garden. So that should be hopefully up and running by June. We did scan all of our environmental permits this last year, so now those are all in a database where we can easily pull something up for people if they say, hey, I don't know why I have a septic tank and I don't know where it is. Hopefully we have it to be able to email them that. So that's what I had, and like I said, it's been a busy 3 years, and haven't really had the time to do as much with the city as I would like to, and my staff is eager to work with you on planning issues or anything where you think viewing any legislation through a public health lens, would be beneficial. We're happy to do that. So just let me know if you would like our assistance with any projects.
Well, thank you. We appreciate your presentation, and thank you for all that information. We are having technical lighting difficulties. I'm glad it just wasn't me, because I was starting to get a little worried I was losing it. But of note, in your presentation, the community garden, is that going to be volunteers, or are they going to have a more of a a larger plot? I know you said that people could rent their own.
Right, yeah, it'll be an area that, you know, people can rent a little plot if they, you know, don't have a space to garden at home. Grow vegetables, our WIC program will have a little area out there. So it's really just, you know, if you're in an apartment and you don't have a place where you can grow some vegetables, you can get a little plot out there and grow your own vegetables out there.
Okay, that's great. Do we have questions from council members? And I apologize once again for the lighting issues.
You had something I'd seen on the website one time about people volunteering in that. I thought they have a program or something, you can be trained, and what was, I can't remember, I don't think you touched on.
Well, we have a couple. There's one, I think they're looking for volunteers to help with the garden. But also we have a medical reserve corps.
That's it, yeah.
So we have, you know, nurses, doctors, but also lay people. So like when we did the mass clinics at the mall, we had people that were from our reserve corps that volunteered to come in and help out. So we try to keep that resource there, so if there is some kind of an emergency, we're able to kind of activate the National Guard of Fairfield County.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding the health department's presentation from council members? We thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you.
Next, we will move on to the In Focus departmental presentation from the City Fire Department. Chief?
Well, first off, thanks for having me this evening. I have handouts because I wasn't sure what the AV situation was, but if that's an HDMI connection, I can plug my computer in and make this slightly more entertaining.
It is. Well, actually, no, it's the D.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
If you want to take a 10-second break, I'll find out if it works.
Give us an excuse to leave the lights off.
Exactly. Now it doesn't look like we're in the dark for no reason.
So I was like, well, we're having another
This one's new, so I'm trying it out.
So while we're waiting on that to warm up, this project I'm going to talk about started really when the citizens group that got together to kind of champion our levy in 2020 started. They wanted to come around and look at the infrastructure of the fire department. They knew that we had a staffing issue, but they also felt that there was other aspects that needed to be addressed. And one of the things that, if anybody attended any of those meetings, one of the things that they highlighted as a need at the time was replacing Engine House 2 at 6 and Harrison. It's kind of become our poster child for, wow, you guys live like this. Because I've heard that many times, probably some people sitting right close to me right now. So after the levy passed, thank you everybody that voted yes for the Safety Forces levy. The then chief and myself as assistant chief started looking around for options for what we could do. And at that time, the focus was really on, we have to do something solely about Engine House 2, and we weren't looking big picture at the rest of the city. So this entire presentation is what that has morphed into, and we've since started looking at what we feel as the department is best for the city long-term, because let's face it, building fire house is not a cheap endeavor, and we're looking at a 50 to 100-year decision as to where we place firehouses. So with that said, we started pulling some numbers out of our run data, and I worked with, and here I'm just going to go to slide number 2. Most of the credit for this presentation really goes to Assistant Chief Schultz, who ran all the data and exported it into lots of spreadsheets, and then got together with Scott Snyder, who is our GIS manager, and started looking at response times and what made sense for the city for firehouse placement when it comes to response times. Because in the fire service, that we live and die by that. The national standard is to get to your emergency within 6 minutes. And as we get through these slides, I'm going to show you where we're at today versus where we could be with our vision of what we're looking at doing here. So I tried to not put a lot of fluff in this because I knew when the SSD said, come do this, that I also had a time limit. I didn't know I was going to be the tail end of 3 tonight. So I'm not saying I'm going to rush through this, but we're going to move through it. So Engine House 3 is our newest fire station, and it was opened in 1966. At that time, the city was a whopping 10 square miles with a population of just under 30,000 people. Today, we have those same 3 firehouses. So the 3 yellow dots up there that you see are where our firehouses currently sit. The darker shade of blue is, with the 2 dots inside of it, is the size of the city in 1966. So everything you see in light blue, all the way out to the yellow corporation lines, has been growth between 1966 and the 2020 census. So as you can see, there's a lot of space out there that's taken us a while to get to. Today, in case anybody is curious, if there's a Jeopardy question, the city is 19 square miles, and we have a population of just under 41,000 people. We're serving that population growth with the same 3 firehouses as we were in 1966. And as you can see, back then, all 3 stations were basically within the shadow of what was the city compared to what it is now. So for those of you who may be uninitiated to the 3 fire stations we have now, just a real brief review of what we have. So Engine House number 1 up here on the hill on Chestnut Street. This, by the way, is the 125th year that station has been consecutively in service as a fire department. We are I believe, if I remember talking from our department historian, we are the 8th oldest continually functioning firehouse in the state of Ohio with this station. We're very proud of the place. We love it. We take very good care of it. In fact, this week we're just finishing up resurfacing the floor, the main truck floor there. And part of that was, it's not just aesthetics, part of it was necessity because we had some water damage we found in the basement, but that project's getting finished up. The floor looks beautiful. We do everything we can to upkeep this building, but there are some limitations to continuing to use this. One of the big ones, being the fire chief, is there's very little about this building that meets modern fire code. You know, if this was going to get transformed into anything else other than what it is, it would take an untold amount of money to bring it up to code to use it for anything except for a firehouse right now. The personnel facilities, we've done a little remodeling on the 2nd floor, and we're looking at some other remodeling projects. Another fun fact that's a sidebar to this is, in the last 3 years, with our hiring efforts, we have more women on the fire department than the entire history of the Lancaster Fire Department combined. So we need facilities for them. We're a 24-hour operation. They live there for 24 hours at a time. None of our firehouses have probably up to standard facilities for male versus females. Operationally, we're kind of challenged with office space for our command staff officers, for our training facilities. We're shoehorned, and we make it work. We shoehorn everybody into a training room in this building, but it could use some work itself. And then there's just the economics of operating a firehouse that's this old. I'm sure some of you live in old houses and you know what the utility bills are like. I forget how many square feet this building is, but the utility bills are significant. And lastly, on my list here is eventually the size of this building is going to start affecting our apparatus decisions. We're probably only a couple years out from needing to start looking at replacing our ladder truck. And there's only certain manufacturers we can even deal with because we've had visits from other manufacturers, and even though the size of their trucks, from a ladder height, how many stories we can get up standpoint, is equal to what we have now, but the way the trucks are built, we cannot fit them inside this building. So it's going to start affecting bigger operations down the road. And like I said, 125 years later, and she's still operational. Engine House 2. So this station, this is the one that was the poster child during the levy campaign that we needed to upgrade our facilities. This opened up in 1955, and everything I've read, everything I know about this station is it was built with secondhand material that was not used during the efforts of World War II. So there's not much we can do to bring this up to a functioning standard fire department. Amazingly, and it's tiny. I mean, it's a couple steps and you're on the truck. The cool thing is everybody that works at that station loves it, and they may not actually want to trade it for a brand new facility. I spent a lot of my years as I was coming through the ranks as an officer over there. I loved it just as equally as everybody that's over there right now, but we need to grow. Engine House 3 out on East Main Street, like as I said, this is our newest station. This is also, on top of the engine and medic you see out there, this houses all of our administration offices. So myself, the assistant chief, our 40-hour battalion chief, our administrative assistant, as well as our fire prevention bureau and our community paramedic all have office space in this building. So with our grand plan of what I'm getting to next, this is the last station that we are looking at addressing for any kind of replacement. We have a loose plan in place that if we get everything else moving, eventually what is now the administrative side of this building will be repurposed, and we'll do some upgrades to this building, and we'll repurpose what we have to make it more functional for the on-duty crews that are there. But you know, I'm not going to say there's zero plan to replace this building, but it is the long range plan. I will be sitting somewhere under a palm tree by the time that any of that happens. So I talked about response times, and I apologize. I tried to lighten these slides up, so this may look a little better on your handouts versus what you're seeing up there. So there's 3 different shades that you should be able to see. Is a lighter blue, a little bit darker blue, and then there's this big area of black that's inside the yellow corporation boundaries. The light blue is places we can get to between 4 and 6 minutes right now with where our firehouses sit. The darker blue is where we can get to with a max of 6 minutes, and then the black shading within the yellow is beyond 6 minutes. So if you live outside that blue area, it's assuming that our closest trucks are in quarters and not on another run, we're pushing up against that 6-minute standard. And the times are important to us. Every fire department in the world, at least in the United States, follows these same standards, because the amount of time that a fire doubles in size, if your home is on fire, depending on who you ask, is anywhere between 30 seconds and a minute. It doubles in size. You know, if you want to talk about time for EMS runs, because we have more EMS runs than we have working structure fires. You know, time is muscle. I'm sure everybody's heard that, seen it on the billboard, whatever. For every minute that you're having an active heart attack and you're not being treated, there's that much more heart muscle that's not going to recover from that event. Time is brain. I'm sure everybody's heard that campaign from billboards or radio ads or whatever. It's the same principle with brain if you're having a stroke. The longer it takes us to get to you, the worse the expected outcome is going to be for you. So, you know, response times are really important. So what we're proposing is moving 2 of our 3 fire stations to strategic locations. And we pulled this data from 2018 forward out of our reporting system. We gave that data to Scott Snyder. He put together, we gave him some rough ideas of where we thought that locations would work, and then he did the rest of it with his GIS mapping software and gave us multiple different maps of, here's a ring of 4 minutes, here's a ring of 6 minutes, here's a ring of 8 minutes. And we distilled that down to this, what I have in front of you now, just to show general locations. So in a nutshell, what we're looking at is moving Engine House 1 and Engine House 2 at essentially the same time. Because if we move Engine House 2 further to the west and north without moving Engine House 1, then the gap between the dot in the middle and the dot on the left side there that's going to become the area of greater than 6-minute response times. So with the locations that we're proposing, we're looking at being able to cover 90% of the city as it exists today, 6 minutes or less. And that's a pretty significant increase from what we have now. And I threw in here, I despise putting anything that looks like a graph or a chart in the middle of a PowerPoint, but I thought throwing one in here because this talks about that 96% coverage would just kind of add to the flair of it, I guess. So where are we looking? In our ideal, and this is a lot of discussion that we've had with, quite honestly, the previous administration last year. I know my safety committee council members here are familiar with this. You know, I've spoke with current SSD, the current mayor, and we think that once the new water plant opens, if we can get the property where the water plant currently sits, that is an ideal location for Engine House 1. It's on the main artery. It gets us north, south, east, west all fairly quickly, and there's enough space there that we can put multiple pieces of apparatus and multiple personnel there to address that run district. Couple that with, we would like to move Engine House 2 to Edie Road. We haven't exactly nailed down an exact location on Edie Road, but that'll give us the coverage that we've been looking for years. You know, way out West Fair. It'll give us coverage in River Valley Highlands. Edie Road is in itself essentially an artery that will get us to Fair Avenue or Memorial Drive fairly quickly to meet those response time goals. So, I mean, we've looked at options. We're still looking at options. So this is very much still a work in progress. And, you know, I was asked to make a presentation on what big things are going on, you know, in the fire department, and I can't think of anything bigger than this. And we think this is a better option than, because I think everybody's aware that we've looked at multiple pieces of property near where Engine House 2 is right now, and that option comes with the need to build a 4th firehouse. And I don't even know what the timeline for that would be, but that is what the option is we would need to build a 4th firehouse. With moving 2 at the same time, I know it's a big ask from a financial standpoint, but I think looking down the road long term, you know, being responsible for this within the city, I think that fiscally it's a better option to be able to operate and meet our goals that we need to meet in 3 stations rather than the expense of a 4th station. And I'm not saying that's never going to happen, because if the city doesn't grow, then that's probably not a good thing either. But this will push that down the road for, even my replacement will probably be drinking something fruity under a palm tree by then. So I think that's the last one. Oh, I do want to throw in June 8th, I think, is a Saturday. So it's the Fairfield County Tour of Homes. Engine House 1 is going to be on the tour this year because it is the 125th anniversary of that station. So please come up. We're going to do a big open house. Come visit us.
Thank you, Chief. We appreciate it. Do we have any council members who have questions for Chief Maffin regarding his presentation this evening?
I don't have a question, Mr. President. I just want to say thank you to you, Chief, and the administration for all the work you're putting into this to bring this to fruition. So as a Ward 2 guy, I personally appreciated seeing those response times going down and the effort you were putting into that. So thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And we certainly appreciate the support we're getting so far on this idea of a project, I guess we'll call it.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you. All right. We're going to move on to petitions and memorials. Okay. Well, we'll figure it out. We'll leave it up for now. There we go.
There are none.
Permission of voters and taxpayers to address council. At this time, are there any voters and taxpayers who wish to address council this evening?
I'm standing up.
All right. Now, you'll just have to state your name and put your information on the sign-in sheet up there.
Yep. Lyndall Jackson, 2336 Rainbow Drive. And I just wanted to back up what Chief Maffin is saying, because back in 2024, 25, when I was down here, there was a plan to do exactly what he's saying. Unfortunately, it's been 20 years later, and you're still waiting. So looking at the same areas, basically, for firehouses, and I really think it's time to get it done, because it's been a long time with no money. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Are there any other voters and taxpayers this evening who wish to address council? Sir, if you'd state your name and sign in on the sheet, and then you have up to 5 minutes.
Okay. My name is Pat Kunkler. I live over on 601 Boyd Street. Recently purchased that house, going on 2 years ago. Lived here a couple years back, moved up to closer to work, came back here for grandkids. Went in to pay my taxes this year with the city tax office and was penalized for not paying quarterly taxes. After I spoke to the tax office, when they sent me a notice, they did not advise me, one, that I was going to be penalized if I didn't pay it in quarterly. I paid it in full the day I went in there, and then paid an extra $168 because they said I got penalized for it. Gentleman didn't really seem to care, and I unfortunately don't really care either, but you know, if they'd have told me on the phone when I talked to him on the phone, it would have been a lot different. It could have been taken care of a lot better than having to come down here for the purpose. As I spoke with the president of the council and I spoke with the mayor on it, have another issue with the tax dollars being at use in the city. 6th Avenue was resurfaced and replaced here last year. Bridge was shut down when I bought the house right there at the park. My understanding is it's going to be shut down again to have it replaced, which means they're going to be tearing into the road that they just put in, which also means that they're going to not replace the curbs that they should have replaced when they did the road to start with. So every time the street sweeper comes down my road, I have to pick concrete up out of my yard because they keep sweeping it up into my yard from the curbs coming apart. I would like to get that taken care of just so I can, one, finish doing my landscaping in my house, because you know, I went through, replaced sidewalks that probably should have been done years ago. And I thank the city for having a reimbursement program on that, because that cost me $6,000. Then they turned around and came back and tore it back out after they did the street, because they said the inclines were incorrect with a company that was suggested to me by the city planning board. So why it didn't get put in right the first time instead of wasting tax dollars to tear it out a second time and replace it, I don't understand. I like to be able to believe that my tax dollars are being used for good purposes. I'm not seeing it right now. Everything, as I stated to several people, everything's being done backwards. Planning Commission evidently doesn't do it right, or they to replace curbs before they replace the road so that the storm drains would work correctly and not be backed up as they come down through there. And they're down there with a city pump truck cleaning out the sewer drain or the storm drains every week. So, I mean, I would like to see what could be done with that and getting that taken care of, because I mean, I'm trying to make my house look a lot better than what it did when I bought it. And, you know, I know they've already reevaluated my property value to go to the city taxes, so I'd like to see something done with it. That's all I have for the council tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Are there any other individuals who wish to address city council?
Mr. President, members of council, administration, I'm not sure if you want to hear from me now or maybe when you get into legislation later. So, I don't know. Steve Davis, 1669 Parkland Drive, County Commissioner. We went back, I don't know, several months ago when I initiated a conversation with then Mayor Scheffler regarding the potential of transfer of transit from the city to the county. And he understood it well in terms of why that would, in the long run, probably be a good thing. And we had some discussions about the terms and conditions, and there was no dispute. I've continued those discussions with the current administration, and again, no dispute. We'd like to see this stuff done sooner rather than later. Y'all do your legislation however you want to do it, but as I look at it, it's a resolution to authorize somebody to negotiate. Well, negotiate with who? I think that's me. I'd like to get started. I appreciate y'all's time.
Are there any other individuals who wish to address City Council at this time? Seeing none, we're going to move in to reports of standing committees.
Finance Committee meeting minutes dated April 8th, 2024, submitted by Mr. Wolfinger.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the reports of standing committees.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the reports of standing committees. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Reports of special committees.
There are none.
Public hearings.
There are none.
We're going to move into the reading of resolutions with the third reading of temporary resolution 4224.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency Water Pollution Control Loan Fund Program for the East Main Street Sewer Separation Project and to execute contracts as required. Coming out of Water Pollution Control, sponsored by Mr. Wing, seconded by Mr. Ailes.
Councilmember Wing.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion the council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 4224.
Second. We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 4224. Discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Again, just a reminder, this is an Ohio EPA mandated sewer separation project around East Main Street and Cherry Street areas.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Leuchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 4224 passes 10-0. Temporary resolution 4324.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and amend the certificate of appropriations with the county auditor in the Capital Improvement Fund 3020 to cover the cost of the Martins Park pedestrian bridge replacement project. Coming out of finance, sponsored by Mr. Wolfinger, seconded by Mr. Ehlers.
Councilmember Wolfinger.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution, temporary resolution 43-24.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 4324. Councilmember Wolfinger.
As the resolution reads and states, this is gives us to go ahead and fund the bridge in Martins Park. It's been long awaited and hope to get done shortly.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Leuchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary resolution passes temporary resolution 4324 passes 10-0. Temporary resolution 4424.
A resolution authorizing the City of Lancaster to participate in the Collaborative Procurement Plus Cooperative Purchasing Program, coming out of Council of the Whole, sponsored by Mr. Schoonover, seconded by Ms. Teener.
Councilmember Schoonover.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 4424.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 4424. Councilmember Schoonover.
This is just another tool and to be used in the tool bag to help departments procure some better pricing on equipment moving forward.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Leuchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 4424 passes 10-0. Temporary resolution 4524.
A resolution authorizing all actions necessary to accept Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council 2024 Energized Community Grant Funds, coming out of Economic Development, sponsored by Mrs. Hoop, seconded by Mr. Nyheiser.
Councilmember Hoop.
Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution numbered 4524.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 4524. Councilmember Hoop, any discussion?
No, this is just money from NOPEC to be used for energy efficiency.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Leuchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 4524 passes 10-0. Temporary resolution 4824.
A resolution authorizing the transfer of assets and operations of Lancaster Fairfield Public Transit to the Fairfield County Board of County Commissioners by or before July 1st, 2024. Coming out of Public Works, sponsored by Ms. Teener, seconded by Mr. Leuchtenberg.
Councilmember Teener.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 4824.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 4824. Councilmember Teener. Any
Yes.
discussion?
Oh, I'm so sorry. This is just a piece that we have been discussing regarding the assets and the operations of the transit department being transferred from the city to the county.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Leuchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 4824 passes 10-0. Temporary resolution 49-24 star.
A resolution of commitment to continue providing financial support for Lancaster Fairfield Public Transit for 2024 and 2025. Coming out of Public Works, sponsored by Ms. Teener, seconded by Mr. Nyheiser.
Councilmember Teener.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 4924 star.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 4924 star. Any discussion, Councilmember Teener?
Yes, this is just that we're committing support of financial support to the transfer of the transit to the county.
Any further discussion? Councilmember Ayler.
I just have a quick question. When did we vote on the amend it? I don't remember taking that vote.
It was submitted in the last meeting to change it to the
I agree with him because I
Yeah,
didn't
well-
do the star. I
Yeah.
didn't, because I thought we were supposed to like remove it and then replace it with star version. And I don't think we did that.
No, I mean, that's how we've done it in the past. If it's different now, that's okay, but I just figured if we're changing it.
Because I don't remember doing it.
I would have to pull them up. I don't have
And
them.
at last meeting, we did not.
I don't
vote to
remember
amend
doing it, because I think I asked and it said no, it was just going to be put in as a star, because I think I asked if we needed to do that. It's like to remove 4824 and replace it with 4924 star. And I don't remember doing that last meeting.
Okay, so do we want to go ahead and do that now?
Would you, I would probably to make it,
Okay.
okay. So do I take from the remove from the table?
No, it's not on the table. What you would do is that you would make a motion to remove 4924 and replace with 4924 star.
Okay. Mr. President, I would like to remove temporary resolution numbered 4924 and replace it with temporary resolution 4924 star.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to remove temporary resolution 4924 and replace it with 4924 star. Is there any need for additional discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yeah.
Mr. Leuchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Motion to replace temporary resolution 4924 and replace it with temporary resolution 4924 star passes 10-0. Councilmember Teener.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 4924 star.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 4924 star. Any further discussion?
No.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Lechtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 4924 star passes 10-0. Temporary resolution 5024.
A resolution to assign the contracts of Lancaster Fairfield Public Transit to the Fairfield County Board of County Commissioners as of July 1st, 2024. Coming out of Public Works, sponsored by Ms. Teener, seconded by Mr. Schoonover.
Councilmember Teener.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution numbered 5024.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 5024. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President, this is just assigning the contracts to the county from the city.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Lechtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 5024 passes 10-0. Temporary resolution 5124.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to negotiate and enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Fairfield County Board of County Commissioners for use of the City of Lancaster Department of Transportation's fuel depot. Coming out of Public Works, sponsored by Ms. Teener, seconded by Mr. Lechtenberg.
Councilmember Teener.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporarily numbered 5124.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 5124. Councilmember Teener, any discussion?
Yes, this just allows our Service Safety Director to negotiate with the county with the Transportation Fuel Depot.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Lechtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 5124 passes 10-0. We'll move on to the second reading of resolutions, beginning with temporary resolution 5324.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into a contract with Arcadis to update the 2022 water and wastewater rate study. Coming out of Water Pollution Control, sponsored by Mr. Wing, seconded by Mr. Ailes.
Councilmember Wing.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of resolution temporarily numbered 5324.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution 5324. Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Lechtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Motion to suspend passes 10-0. Councilmember Wing.
Yes, just a reminder, this is a budgeted rate study coming out of the Water and Water Pollution Control Departments, and it is just a study of our rates and where we should be at this time.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Lechtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 5324 passes 10-0. Temporary resolution 5424.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to negotiate and enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Fairfield County Board of County Commissioners for ongoing financial support for Lancaster Fairfield Public Transit, coming out of Public Works, sponsored by Ms. Teener, seconded by Mr. Nyheiser.
Councilmember Teener.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution numbered 5424.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution 5424. Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
No.
Mr. Lechtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
No.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Motion to suspend passes 8 to 2. Councilmember Teener.
Or did I just suspend?
Yes.
No, good, okay. Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 5424.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 5424. Any discussion, Councilmember Teener?
Well, yeah, I kind of, sorry, I paused there for a minute. Some people voted no, and I always vote no, and I was just kind of surprised that there was a no vote, so I was like, what happened here? But what I would like to say is, we just passed the companion piece, 4924, that says this is the commitment, so this is the commitment. So I understand the other thing, but we just passed the other one. So if y'all should have voted no, should have been for that one to wait, and y'all didn't. I'm really surprised at y'all. So
Any further discussion? Councilmember Schoonover.
Well, I'll throw it out there because I usually don't, but it was the suspension request. It's not, I'm going to vote yes to pass it. It was the suspension piece, so it has nothing to do with anything
Okay.
except the timing of the thing. So,
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yeah.
Mr. Lechtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
yes.
Ms. Teener?
yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 5424 passes 10 to 0. We'll move on to the first reading of resolutions with temporary resolution 5524.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the construction of the South Broad Street Improvement Project and to declare an emergency. Coming out of Public Works, sponsored by Ms. Teener, seconded by Mr. Lechtenberg.
Councilmember Teener.
First of two readings.
First of two readings on temporary resolution 5524. Temporary resolution 5624.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and amend the certificate of appropriations with the county auditor and the 3 Mills Street Improvement Levy Fund 2009. Coming out of Finance, sponsored by Mr. Wolfinger, seconded by Mr. Ailes.
Councilmember Wolfinger.
First of three readings.
First of three readings on temporary resolution 5624. Are there any further resolutions to come before City Council this evening? Hearing none, we're going to move on to the reading of ordinances, beginning with the third reading of temporary ordinance 1324.
Mr. President, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, yes,
I was
Council.
on a roll. No, go ahead.
Okay.
I just,
Sorry. Okay. Okay. Clerk, please.
An ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to negotiate and enter into a lease agreement with the Fairfield County Board of County Commissioners for the Lancaster Fairfield Public Transit Facilities at 700 and 746 Lawrence Street, Lancaster, Ohio, for transit services. Coming out of Public Works, sponsored by Ms. Teener, seconded by Mr. Nyheiser.
Councilmember Teener.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion the council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary ordinance 1324.
Second.
We have a motion, and a second, to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary ordinance 1324. Any discussion? Councilmember Teener.
This is just so the service safety director can negotiate with the county about the transit facilities.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call a roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizcheck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Lechtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary ordinance 1324 passes 10 to 0. We move on to second reading of ordinances, beginning with temporary ordinance 1424.
An ordinance to authorize the mayor to deed approximately 5.538 plus or minus acres owned by the city of Lancaster and further identified as Fairfield County, Ohio parcel number 053-180-4812 for $1 to the Lancaster Port Authority and to execute any and all documents necessary for the transfer thereof and to declare an emergency. Coming out of Economic Development, sponsored by Mrs. Hoop, seconded by Mr. Wing.
Councilmember Hoop.
Second of three readings.
Second of three readings on temporary ordinance 1424. There are no first readings of ordinances this evening. We have no tabled legislation. Unfinished business before council this evening, aside from continuing to remind Councilmember Wolfinger and Councilmember Schoonover to have a good year. Happy birthday. So, new business. Any new business before council this evening?
Real quick,
Yes.
can we get some labels on the light switches for?
Yeah, we're gonna ask the service safety director to see if she can have somebody look at the lights. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Be awesome.
Announcement of scheduled meetings.
Next regular sessions of council, May 6th at 6:30 PM and May 20th at 6:30 PM. Upcoming special meetings, none. Upcoming committee meetings for the next 30 days. Economic Development, April 25th at 7:30 AM, City Hall, 1897 Conference Room. Finance Committee meeting, April 22nd at 6 PM here in Council Chambers. Finance Committee, May 6th at 6 PM here in Council Chambers. Law Committee, May 6th at 7:30 AM, City Hall, 1897 Conference Room. And Finance, May 20th at 6 PM in Council Chambers.
Thank you. Reading of bills.
There are none.
No reading of bills. No executive session. But before we adjourn, actually, I think that's it. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion, we adjourn.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Lancaster City Council is adjourned at 10 till 8. We still made it within time, even with all of our very informative presentations this evening, so we thank you. Have a good evening. Please remember to sign your legislation this evening.